So welcome to Planet 40K. I'm Eugenio.
And I'm Carl, and today we're going to be talking about how to choose your first 40k army.
Okay, today's topic is an important one. Whether you're a beginner looking to start your first 40k army or someone who's interested in starting a different army, it's a good idea to take a little time to consider your options before jumping in. Today we're going to talk about a few points to help you make that decision. So, Carl, what's the first thing on the list?
So the first thing you need to be thinking about when you're picking your army is what type of species or race do you want to be in. It gets broken down into three main categories, which is an army of the Imperium, an army of Chaos, or an army of Xenos.
Okay, so should we start with Imperium? So can you give me some examples of the armies of the Imperium?
Yeah, so a few of the main ones are Space Marines. There's loads of different chapters in the Space Marines. The Sisters of Battle, you've got the Astra Militarum, and you've got the Adeptus Mechanicus. They're the main ones.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to Chaos. So yeah, give us some armies from Chaos.
So Chaos are a little bit more complicated. You've got the Chaos Space Marines and the Chaos Demons, but both of them sort of dedicate themselves to one of four gods within the Chaos realms. You've got the god of Nurgle, the god of Slanesh, the god of Tzeentch, and the god of Khorne. So they all sort of separate into one of those four.
Okay, cool. And then the last one, the Xenos armies.
So Xenos are like the alien species of the universe. You've got Elder, Dark Elder, the Necrons, Orcs, Tau, and the Tyranids. There's plenty to choose from there.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about the models. So one of the main reasons you pick a 40k army is because you like the look of the models. So let's talk about your army, Carl, the Tyranids. So why did you choose the Tyranids?
And the model that drew me to the Tyranids was the Swarm Lord. He's basically the main HQ of the army. He's this massive monster, 4 swords, just looks like an absolute beast. And all the other models in the army sort of have the similar look to him. So as soon as I saw that model, that was it. I was Tyranids.
Okay, so I'll talk a bit about the army I'm collecting at the moment. So I've got 2 armies. I'm switching over at the moment, mainly because I don't actually like the look of my first army anymore. So I collect the Space Wars, and I've recently just gone off them just because I've realised that they're space werewolves, and I don't really like some don't like some of the new models. And one of their main HQs gets pulled around on a sled. He looks like Santa Claus pulled around by wolves. So
not for you, no, not for you.
No, not for me anymore. I mean, I still like them because they were one of my first armies I've collected when I was a teenager. So, but
it's all when I was
so my army now is the Eldar, or Eldari as they're now called by Games Workshop. So I actually used to hate the models for the Eldar. I used to think they were skinny, and compared to a Space Marine, a Space Marine is a bulky kind of model, and it just has good armor and stuff. And yeah, when you look at a little Guardian who's like a troops of the Eldar, they just look like you can just
like little thin things, aren't they?
Yeah, you just think like what's that? But I'd never actually seen them in person, like the actual models on the table. I'd just seen pictures in books or on the internet. And I moved near Games Workshop store at one point, and so I went in there quite regularly, and I saw this one time this guy had a massive Elder army, and I was like, I saw it on the battlefield, and I was like, oh, okay, that looks a lot better than I thought. Like they look pretty cool, and he had loads of bikes that moved really fast, and yeah, I just kind of liked the look of them. Kind of changed my mind, really. So I guess you can change your mind even if you don't originally like the models. You could change your mind later.
Yeah.
So the next thing to think about is what kind of budget you're building for your army. So Carl, do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so you need to consider the size of certain armies. Like there are certain armies in the 40k universe that are a lot larger in terms of model count than others, such as Orcs or Tyranids, like my army. And there's a lot more models. They're a lot weaker, but there's loads of them. They're like horde armies, which means you're going to be spending more money because there's more to buy. So if you don't want to spend as much, you could consider a low model count army, such as the Grey Knight Space Marines, where they're quite an elite army. Everything's quite strong, but there's only a few models, sort of 10, 20 models in your army,
Yeah, so you
and you're
don't have to
done.
spend like 300 quid to get an army.
Exactly.
I
So
think
if your budget's low, then that's the way to go.
yeah, probably like I think Games Workshop does start collecting kits
Yeah.
that, you know, they're exactly what they say on the box. It's like to start collecting, and I think if you get the Grey Knights one, you probably have a pretty
Whole
almost like a,
army.
you know, pretty much a whole army probably. I mean, I don't even know if they do Grey Knights, but the point is, yeah, if you'd only need a few models to play a game,
Yeah.
whereas with orcs or something, you need to, yeah, you know,
Yeah. And I
get a big
mean,
army.
and that touches on the point next, which is about painting your army. Again, if you've got a lot of models, such as an orc army or a Tyranid army, you're going to be painting an awful lot of models as well. So make sure you've dedicated the time for painting.
Yeah,
If you've
so
got a small army, yeah,
if you're like me, I'm really slow at painting. So if I had
you
to, if
spend
I collect,
years.
I spent literally years, like, and I'm still not done. So if I collected orcs, for instance, then
They'll
basically
never be
I'd
done.
be hitting my grave before they're done. So
Yeah,
so yeah, it's worth considering. Do you have the time to paint them? If you collect Grey Knights or, you know, the Custodes, Adeptus Custodes models, then you could get that army finished, hopefully, you know, pretty soon, painted up and ready to play.
yeah, and
And
then
you
move
know,
on to another army, and then have two. But
yeah,
at least you've
exactly.
got one to play. That's
Yeah,
the point.
exactly. That's the main thing, because you don't want to be like us and be painting one army for like 5 years.
Okay, so moving on, like
So yeah, go
something
on.
to consider is like, are you interested in the story behind the army itself? There's a lot of stories, a lot of novels, a lot of lore, um,
Yeah, so
in why
this
you
kind
would
of
collect.
thing is interesting because I think it's quite important for me that I was saying before that you know, I was collecting Space Wolves and I realized I didn't actually like them in the end. And maybe if I had known about some of the lore, I would have maybe thought again,
You'd have been
because
aware of it.
I would have been aware of it. Because when I started doing Space Wars, when I was like, we were 13 or something, like, so it's like 20 years ago now or something. So they were more to do with like a Viking theme. They were like more Vikings,
Yeah.
and they weren't as wolfy as they are now. And then,
Mhm.
you know, so now they've got units like the Wolfen, who are just basically like space
Man
werewolves,
wolves.
man wolves, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh god, this is too much.
Not
So
for you. Again,
yeah,
not for
it's,
you.
yeah, you might like you. I mean, I've actually got them, so I was considering them once, and then I kind of was like, actually, nah, I can't be collecting space where it's just too cheesy. So yeah, but they were in the lore from before, so there was always a possibility that Games Workshop was going to release them as
Yeah.
models, but I
You
just
just weren't
didn't
aware
know.
of it.
So it's
It's
worth just
important.
yes, it's worth just checking out. And I know Matt from Mini Wargaming, he's talked about why he would never collect Dark Eldar, because the lore is like quite twisted. So
Yeah,
he's
it's
like,
quite
I don't.
sexualized, isn't it?
Yeah, so whatever. He's like, nah, I'm not. I don't want to collect that. And he collects like um, a Salamander's army, I think, who are like, you know, the good guy. I think even Marines, they're supposed to be the good guys, but even they like kill civilians and they have to kill people like who are good or whatever. But Salamanders are like one Marine chapter that are known for they're like, you know, they like civilians and they protect them. And so if you're into that,
Yeah.
maybe you don't care about the law, but if you're in, like, if you don't want to find that out later that you're paying the guys that you don't really like. So yeah, that's one thing
So
to think
what's the
about.
website you use to find out about the law?
So yeah, Warhammer or Games Workshop has a website for Black Library, they call it. So that's their publishers. So they have
Library.com.
blacklibrary.com, yeah, so they have loads of different books on there, and
Novels, audiobooks.
it's been going since the 90s, I think. So what's that now, 30
Mm.
years of, maybe even before that. So it's quite a big history, so there's loads of stuff to check out. We'll do some videos on the laws just to you have like a brief
Yeah.
understanding, not too in depth, but so you don't make mistakes like I've made, hopefully. So the
Okay.
next thing we can talk about is the play style. So do you want to talk about playstyle?
Yeah, so there's two main types of playstyle in the 40k universe. One is being a ranged army, sort of a ranged gun shooty army. Examples of that would be like Tau. They like to stay back and shoot.
Mm.
Or you could be more of a close combat orientated army. You want to get in their face, chop them down with your close combat weapons, chainswords or orc choppers. So depending on how you want to play the game, you should sort of look at that first. I mean, most armies can do both, but some are more, like I say, orientated to a certain way of playing. So yeah.
Yeah, so I guess one of the first things you might want to do is check out a codex, to find out what the rules are, or
Or you could
just
just ask your local Games Workshop
yeah, exactly.
store attendant.
But
They'll help
yeah,
you out.
we're going to do videos on each army and break down like the pros and cons. So like for Tau, shooting is a pro, close combat is a con for them because they hate close combat.
They've got a few units that can do stuff in close combat, but the majority of the army want to stay back and shoot from
You
afar.
don't want to be near a corn berserker, for instance.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, I definitely wouldn't either.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
moving on to the last. Go on, sorry.
don't forget psychic. So there's different ways to, attack your enemy. So you got shooting and close combat, and then the third thing is psychic powers. So there are different armies, and I mean everyone's got a psyker in their army, but do they? Does everyone?
No, Necrons don't, but the Catans do like a similar type of power, but it's not actually
Okay.
psychic. But
Yeah,
Corn don't. Corn have no psychic.
Oh yeah, corn. Oh, wow, I don't forget that. So so that you want to think about if you like psychic stuff, then pick a army like Eldar, or even the Tyranids
Nurgle.
have really good
Nurgles are good at
psychics.
it.
Yeah, Nurgle. So that's another thing to consider. So the next
Yep.
thing is to consider kind of similar to what we're talking about with the how you want to fight and everything, is how competitive you want to be. So in general, shooting armies tend to be more competitive
At the moment.
at the
Things
moment.
could change
Yeah,
when
things
ninth
could.
edition drops very shortly.
Yeah. So things could change, but so it's a good idea if you care about winning to maybe check the best armies at the moment in 40k. Like you can Google that and see what are the best armies and what the best
But
lists to have.
it might not be all about winning to you. It might just be about purely fun, playing with your friends,
Yeah.
brothers and sisters. So in that way, you can just buy any army really, and just enjoy it. Have a really fluffy list, really themed. Such as demons. Demons are not really the strongest on the tournament scene or in match play, but you have a lot of fun with them.
Yeah. So that's one thing to consider. But I mean, if you've already been playing for a while, then you'll already, know what's kind of compared. But even if you're thinking of going into another army, and you want to know, like, is it competitive or not? Yeah, it's worth checking it out because it's always changing. It can always change. But in general, there are some
books and
top tips.
codexes are always coming out every other month. There's a book that completely changes the game anyway, so
Yeah,
it does keep changing. Cool.
Okay, so I think that's about everything. If you like the video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.